Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher. Turn to the teacher.
And welcome back. I'm Mike with the Turntable Teachers, and class is back in session. Here for another guest speaker episode at AOA Studios. If you're an artist, podcaster, or content creator of any kind, make sure you hit us up at aoastudios.org. Book your session today. And I am joined today by a very special guest. This is somebody I wanted to have on the podcast for a very long time. He is an entertainer. He's an artist, a musician, vocalist, rapper, designer, publicist, writer. I mean, the man kind of just does it all. Look at the fit. The fit's unbelievable. Can we talk about the fit for like a second too? This is unreal. New album, Beneath My Wings, out now. Make sure you stream that on all platforms after the episode. Of course, the link is in the description. Thank you so much for joining us, the one and only Julian Mendoza.
What an introduction, yo.
I think that's my best introduction to date. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I thought that was pretty good.
Oh my goodness.
I improv that,
the
by the way.
care is very apparent, and it is reciprocated. I am so thankful to be here today. Turntable Teachers does so much for the Massachusetts community, and who knows where it's going to go in the future, and it's just really, really nice to be a building block along this journey. So thank you so much for having me, Mike, and it's an honor to receive such kind words this early into the podcast.
Well, it's downhill from here. Just I wanted to butter you up real quick.
All right.
So people that don't know, Julian and I have had a good relationship, I'd say, over the last year when I've gotten to know you a little bit better, specifically more so from at Masterclass, the album that we're working on. I feel like I got to know you a little bit more so after that, and then we've been working together on a multitude of different fronts, whether it be covering shows or putting on shows together, or you doing your album release party here, or just working on or just not even working on, but just showing each other like what we're working on and like getting feedback, and working a lot with Lib. Big shout out to Lib. Like, just
it's the GOAT. That's the GOAT. Shout out Lib.
We love Lib.
Intent out soon.
Hopefully, actually, at this stage, when this podcast is out, it might actually already be out. So if that's the case, I think it will be. Like, I'm like 95% sure Intent's probably already out by the time that this is out. So you should also watch that. I'll probably link that in the description. Starring Julian Mendoza. I guess he's an actor too. I forgot to mention that.
You heard it here first.
But no, it's just been great too to watch you sort of grow over the last year and your journey, and us get a lot closer. So in all seriousness, yeah, this is an episode I've been looking forward to for a while, and I think it's at a perfect time for you, just with everything you've got going on and this amazing album that we will get to very shortly. So welcome. I'm glad to have you. We always start the Turntable Teachers with the objective, which is where we get to know you a little bit and get to know your background. So I do know from your early years, I'm talking like as a child, that you were like a huge Michael Jackson fan, to the point where you would impersonate him, and you went on like a little tour, so to speak, quote unquote tour. I'm using that in air quotes. It wasn't really a tour. But I know that you were like, would dress like him. You would imitate him. You just loved him so much. And I find that so fascinating from somebody that's like in our age bracket, to be so invested in Michael Jackson at the age we are. So what really like made you want to be, I mean, even when I've seen you perform too, like I can see the resemblance. Like I see like the way you dance, like phenomenal dancer too, by the way. I forgot to mention that. So what about Michael Jackson for you was so inspirational as a child? And why do you think, like, do you consider yourself an older soul, like almost gravitating towards an artist of, like somebody that was not growing up or wasn't really like very, very popular at the time, like while you were growing up?
Sure. Well, I appreciate this callback too, because it's something that's near and dear to me that I don't talk about a whole ton these days. But I gotta trace it back to actually his death. He died, and it was all over the news.
I remember
it was what, 2009?
Yeah, it was, because it's funny how like even though he wasn't like somebody that we grew up with, it's so interesting how like sometimes you have these moments that are so pinnacle in the world that you just remember where you were.
I remember exactly.
I remember the weather
where
that
I
day.
was. I remember the newscast and the cars on the road that they were showing. I don't remember what they were. Maybe it was like the police rushing to his house or something like that. But I saw his name. I knew it was important. But I am ashamed to say at let's see, how old was I? I was 10 at the time.
Yeah, I was 14. So
yeah,
I was freshman in high school. I remember that. Or I was going into my sophomore year, I believe, of high school.
Right. I literally had no idea who he was. I assumed he was like a football player or something like that. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to mind, but my parents, my mom especially, certainly, I don't know if you can call it an old soul, but she listens predominantly to music that she listened to when she was a teenager, maybe her early 20s. That's what she resonates with. So Michael Jackson during that time was huge all over the world. She was never even like a huge fan of him in particular, but obviously he ruled the world, particularly at that time.
Sure.
So because of that, she put me on to Michael Jackson after he died, just being like, you have to at least know who he is and what he sounds like and what he did. And through that, she started sort of rediscovering him and digging deeper than she had into him than she'd ever before, even in her younger years, and she started building this appreciation. So not only was I really liking his music as I heard it more, but she started really liking it more than she ever had, and that became sort of something that brought us closer together. Awesome. She and I got really, really close. We watched this one Michael Jackson live in Bucharest video of him doing like a whole concert in for the Dangerous tour, and that's where I learned all my moves. Basically, is every day I'd stand in front of the TV and dance. We had a small living room, but I made do. It all came to a head when we had to do like a biography project in 5th grade, and it feels like yesterday, 5th grade, and after I gave like this book report type thing, I was like, I have a little extra credit, something, and I did a dance routine to Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson in the middle of the class, and my teacher was like, oh my God, that was so good. All of my classmates were like, whoa. Like I started, like, she brought me to like other classes to like do it, and I was like, I just went on tour when I talked with my mom, and that sort of like escalated, long story short, long story long, into me getting opportunities to perform at other public venues and for events. People got a kick out of this little kid who, really got solid at dancing like Michael Jackson and dressed like him. And I had long hair, and, I took a lot after him. So I guess to answer the other part of your question too is like, there's a large part of me that's an old soul, and I have a ton of respect for those who paved the way for music today. At the same time, I'd say the vast majority of the music I listen to nowadays, contrary to what it was like when I was a child, is current music. And that's not to say necessarily mainstream, but music with a modern sound that perhaps takes cues from those who came before. That is what I hope comes across in my music, and when I try to pay tribute to Michael Jackson nowadays, which is a conscious decision. I have a lot of stuff that's new school, or I'm going to use the word of my boy Nick. Shout out Nick V, Async Collective.
Another thing we'll definitely talk about later.
Yeah. He uses the term futurist, which I'm not sure if he coined it or if that's just something that he goes with, but he uses it on his merch. And I've taken that to heart. I'm sort of a futurist, but also tap into the other side of that coin, which is nostalgia, a song that we have. And, I've thought a lot more about that since making our songs. Nostalgia and futurism is how I hold on to that past while making something new in such a way that really resonates with people from all generations.
Yeah, no, I love how I think that was really well said and very well explained in terms of like, if anybody listening to this hasn't heard your music, like I think that you bring in, especially on the new album, you bring in a lot of funk and soul influence that you can kind of hear from, you know, the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But I think that there, like you said, there was a modern spin on that in many ways, whether it be from modern hip hop or even like pop, you know, influences. So I love the combination of that. I find just that to be, like you said, I think that's great that that's a conscious decision. Did it crush you when you found out that his flying set was not real? Because I have heard that was like something that really
Damn, you
hit
shit me in the heart here. You weren't kidding when you said this is all downhill from here, man. No, it did crush me. It was a reality check. I felt betrayed for a little bit. It was a whole thing that I won't get into, but it slowly devolved into the Santa conversation.
Oh well,
we might have to blank that out. Yeah, you can't.
We'll get there soon. We'll get there soon. I'm gonna change subjects before we get too far. So all I gotta say is I just want it perfectly crushed you.
Yes.
We'll get to the Santa thing later too. He's spoiling some topics for later, but that's okay. It's fine. I got plenty. I'm chock full of them today. I want to talk to you about your upbringing too, in terms of like geographically, right? So you've obviously been living in Massachusetts a majority, if not most of your life. And, you know, you grew up in Gloucester, but now you've lived in Western Mass for a long time, but you work a ton in the Boston area. So I'm very curious, like, for you, like, I think that's very unique in the sense of how expansive in terms of like geographically you've lived in Massachusetts. So what has that been like for you, not only from a personal sort of perspective, but like musically, like how has that helped you as an artist as well?
Sure. So I grew up in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and lived there for 18 years until I went to college at UMass Amherst. Was there for 4 years, loved living there. Campus was great. Then just so happened after that to get a job in Greenfield, Massachusetts, which is in the same general vicinity as like 20 minutes north of Amherst out in Western Mass, and have lived there for 2 years, split with, I lived in Brattleboro, Vermont, right over the border for 9 months or so. So been in that general sort of valley area for 6-7 years now. And it's been cool seeing the duality between the two areas of Massachusetts. You know, it really is a different world between Boston and Western Mass, no matter where you go. Which is funny just because geographically Massachusetts is so small. But there's been a beauty to that in that, you know, growing up in Gloucester, Mass, just north of Boston, coming back to Boston now that I do music has felt like a return to my roots in some ways, but also a new sort of discovery in terms of what's been around me my whole life that I'd never tapped into. I've met so many, 90% of the artists that I work with and go see their shows and stuff like that are in Boston. I'm a prolific local music supporter, going out to see shows.
I was going to mention that too, just not to cut you off, but just I've always appreciated that from you so much, is like how much you give people their flowers and how you are not at all, shy about giving support and things like that. Like you really, and I know, like I mean that sincerely, because I've not only seen it from myself, but you do it for so many other people. And I think that you don't expect anything in return, and I appreciate that from you. So that's why I wanted to just point that out.
Yeah, it's near and dear to me, and it brings me joy. It's not only just because I want to show love; it's because it makes me happy. Like, these are the spaces that give me my energy. And I've learned a lot from the people here in the Boston area. So now when I'm out in Western Mass, I work as a journalist and newspaper reporter. Out there for the Shout Out Greenfield Recorder. But I feel like an ambassador of sorts for what I've picked up here in the Boston area. And there's certainly a music scene out there, and there's some great rappers actually from Western Mass. Hip hop exists, but obviously it's going to be few and far between for, you know, the people out there and in the scene out there. So when I do my thing, I try to bring something different, but also something that's sort of a gateway into what people aren't used to. I feel like my stuff isn't going to shock you into something you might not like at first that you really have to get used to. I feel like I have a lot to offer that calls to stuff that people in Western Mass might already listen to, which has folk vibes, and a lot of people like rock there, and just like singing stuff in general, you know, is way more prominent there, particularly because of the older population. And I've had a lot of, like, you know, middle-aged and up people really like my music, and it's changed a lot of opinions on what hip-hop is capable of. So I've been really honored to be an ambassador in that sense, and I don't want to, you know, discredit or downplay how deeply rooted in hip-hop I am. I'm proud of it, despite, you know, all of the genre crossing I do.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. You bring up a good point too. Like when we were at Hope Fest a couple weeks ago, like for your set, there was an older couple next to me. I don't want to say too old, maybe in their 50s or something like that, but they were loving you. You know what I mean? And I thought and it makes sense because I think your music is accessible. It is a nice, if somebody doesn't really listen to hip hop, I think your music is a great way to or a great gateway into that, because it has a little bit more of an easier listening. There are some of those, like you said, folk, or what I said earlier with the funk and the soul. Like you kind of are able to blend all that together and find a way to make it relatable. And I've always appreciated that about your music. In terms of your parents, I want to talk about that because, by the way, they're like the nicest people ever. I want to say, like, that, you know, met them multiple times now, and like, you know, you meet somebody once and you're like, oh yeah, they're super nice, but then like you meet them 2, 3, 4 times, you're like, okay, these people are unbelievable. But I know that like your mom's an artist, right? She paints, is that correct?
She paints, yeah.
Like a great painter.
Great.
And then your dad was a designer, is a designer, right?
Yeah, he's really the I don't like the word accomplished because everybody accomplishes things in their own way, but he has the most international recognition for what he does as a museum exhibit designer. He's worked on Smithsonian exhibits. You know, he's just really, really gifted at that sort of exhibit graphic design. He's working on the Malcolm X museum right now.
Oh, wow.
In the ballroom where he was killed. He's working closely with Malcolm X's daughter.
No way.
So it's been really, really cool to learn how far creativity and artistry can get you through him. He's a huge role model to me.
That's I can tell, and you guys have such a nice relationship. So I'm curious with your parents, like, was it just natural for you to get into art because of their artistic backgrounds, or was it something where they exposed it to you multiple times, or did they just allow you to like kind of get into it yourself? Like, I'm kind of curious about their sort of impact on you as well growing up.
Sure. Well, I guess first and foremost, they really laid the groundwork in that they are the biggest advocates for do what you love. You know, social expectations like should not dictate what you want to do. If you want to find success in your own lane, do it. Just do it. Do what you love and be happy. And I can only assume that extends from their own artistry and what they've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Each of them have had to break away from you know, status quos and the
fight those like societal norms.
Yeah,
so to speak.
and the boundaries and chains set forth by familial tradition too. My father comes from a rather traditional Catholic Filipino family. My mother more secular, but still comes from a Jewish family that perhaps not directly linked to religion in this way, but you know, just think back. We had society was so different even 50 years ago. You know, my parents are a few years away from 60 years old now. So just by virtue of growing up at those times and having, you know, parents who are, my grandmother just passed, but she was like 90, and my grandparents are rather older generation. And
100%.
because of that, there's a lot of shifting that has to be done,
Totally.
So I really credit them most of all for their chain breaking and their attention to creating a new status quo for the type of people they want to see in the world. So aside from just my extended family being very creative as well, my uncle is a prolific, fantastic musician.
You have another uncle that's a writer, correct?
Yeah, he writes children's books. It's the same one who's actually
the same one. Oh my God, that's
a musician.
okay.
He does a little bit of everything.
That's
My
awesome.
my grandfather was a journalist, worked for the New York Times. And my cousins on my dad's side, those were both on my mom's side. My cousins on my dad's side, are band leaders, multi-instrumentalists, producers. Shout out the Later people. My cousins Mark and Matthew, they're twins. They were, invaluable into getting me into music and hip hop in general too. They produced a lot of my music. So shout out to them. I'm really honored and grateful to be surrounded by so many of those just in my family tree.
That's so cool. No, so I mean, it sounds like almost just naturally for you that you were just going to get into something artistic, and music just kind of happened to be that. And even your brother, he's a great photographer, right?
Yes.
So it's like you guys, I mean, you are too, don't get me wrong, but like it seems like that's like his craft, like that's something he's focused on in his
He
craft.
inspires me incredibly too. I
Yeah.
can't forget about him.
Yeah.
No, he's doing incredible stuff, and we've collaborated a good deal with between our mediums too. So
Yeah.
shout out him. He's doing great things in New York right now. So I'm really proud of him. Hope you hear that, Ezra. Love you, man.
Hell yeah, man. No, I love that. Like when you have a family that really supports that. I love what you said about the chain breaking, right? Because I was actually having this conversation with a student yesterday, and he was talking about how he wants to just content create, and he wants to, he's not sure if he wants to go to like the 4-year college, and like, but his parents, he comes from more of like an Indian background, so like naturally, just culturally, they want him to go to school, they want him to go to get a 4-year degree, and just his resistance towards that. And I just find it like, I love when I hear parents that are willing to, I don't want to say take the risk, but just to be like, hey, you know what? If you feel like this is what's best for you, like go for it and do it. I tell my students all the time, like, as long as you're not doing anything destructive, like, I think that you should have some autonomy over, getting what, doing what you do. I know the college degree and all that, I know that like it is important to an extent, but I do 1000% think it is at this stage of the game, we need to be advocating for people to do the things that bring them joy and passion, whatever that might be. And I think that we'll just see a lot more happiness in the world and a lot less people feeling like they're overworked. I mean, it's not that simple, but I think it's just a natural, good place to start. I think there's just like those taking away some of those pressures can really help the mental health of people. And I feel like for you to be able to be feeling free to sort of express yourself and do that must be such an awesome thing. So
Thank you.
I love that. And I want to definitely get into the next segment of the show, which is the main lesson. And of course, we got to talk about the album, Beneath My Wings. It's an unbelievable body of work. 14 tracks, a little less than an hour runtime, right? Or
Yeah,
roughly.
that sounds right. A little less than an hour, I
Yeah.
think.
And then is it more than, how many collaborators? Is it 40? More than that?
It
50?
is, yeah. So don't let the track list fool you, because it's not quite as many as 40 plus. But I can say certifiably, there are more than 40 people who contributed to this as instrumentalists, background vocalists, engineers, writers, featured artists, of course, producers. Like, it certainly is a community album, and I that just stems from me getting just as much joy seeing other people's creative processes and making things happen collaboratively, as I do myself making music, because I just love music. I love what I do, but I also love what music does for me.
Yeah.
And if I can be the catalyst for beautiful music, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if my voice touches that in any grand capacity. As long as it's something that I'm proud to be a part of, I'm more than cool taking a back seat and watching people do their thing. So I almost feel guilt putting my name on a lot of these songs as like the guy, but I do take pride in my sense of initiative in terms of making these things happen and bringing it together, executive producing in a way. So
No, I can totally relate to that, and I know how difficult that is as I'm doing it now, and I know it took you a really long time, but I appreciate the eclectic listen that it is. We've talked about it already, but just how many genres you're bringing in, how many collaborators. Like, I'm curious. I want to talk about like you almost as the executive producer and the orchestration of this album, but I would love to give the listeners, anybody that's listening to this that hasn't heard the album, like a little taste of it before they go to listen to the album after this episode. So don't go anywhere. You are going to get a brief taste of this. What's like your favorite song, or is maybe not your favorite song, but maybe a good, I know it's tough to ask a favorite song. You're asking it from 14 children here, your favorite song. What song do you think is a good maybe entry point into like what people might hear if they haven't heard it yet before? And we can play a little clip of it if you're cool with that.
I can answer that. Beneath My Wings, I think, is the perfect introduction. It's the title track of the album, of course. But again, like the way, like what my face was referencing, my facial expression was referencing is that you're right. It is hard to pick a favorite. But what I say about Beneath My Wings, the song, is that it's the most me I've had of any song. It sounds the most like what I do, and it has the most elements of what I strive to achieve. Beneath My Wings was entirely live instrumentation. It doesn't have a feature. It's just me, and it combines the sensitivity that I try to achieve with a lot of my like melodic rapping / rhythmic singing. It has a spoken word piece at the end. It's jazzy. It has a jazz piano solo in it. And I think it really has a sonic narrative to it that feels epic, but also vulnerable at the same time. So I'm really, really thankful that my instrumentalist friends helped me achieve that. Jazz Altman was the #1 producer on that. He really laid out the skeleton after I sent him an acapella to build off of. And I do think that is the most sensible entry point.
I love it. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Here is the title track off Julian Mendoza's new album, Beneath My Wings. We're going to play you guys a clip of it, and we'll be right back.
On some jet fuel, dripping on some petrol. Instrumental skydive, grind like my mind's a pestle. Back to the sentimental, been driving inside a rental. Resentful is not the mindset, I'm trying to take it gentle in that good night. Should try, get in my neighborhood right. I don't wanna go with the homies on death row, Suge Knight. Lose my line of sight before the lights and the fame. Rather lose my life than lighten up the weight of my name. My memories cease staying to praise my medal. My head is coffee stand to crave that buzz. Ahead will seem each day the way I'm bubbling up. I dump the grounds cause I sold my trust.
And that was Beneath My Wings, the title track off of Julian Mendoza's brand new LP. And we are back to talk about it a little bit more. I love that song. There's many songs on here that I really like a lot. I love My Story, Carried Away, LA Time. There's so many good songs on here. Playtime's Over. I wanted to call it Child's Play, but that didn't sound right. Playtime's Over.
It's playful, childish.
Yeah. The play got me in it. So for you, like, I'm very curious about the executive, like you were talking about earlier, being the executive producer, and I mean, there's a little bit more than that. I think you did much more than executive produce it, but at its core, you did orchestrate this thing together. So I'm just curious for you, like, where does that come from in order to make those sort of executive, quote unquote, decisions to figure out which collaborators will be good on certain songs, or, you know, for you in thinking about like what maybe sounds good here, or how to switch, maybe this melody I could use over here in a bridge instead of a hook, like all those decisions that come to that, like, what do you fall back on to make those choices? Because I know for you, you've had such a great background in music. I know hip hop has been something you got into maybe like in your middle school years. And so you've just had this like eclectic background already. But I'm curious, as a legitimate musician, what inspired you or what helped you to make those choices?
Sure. I guess first and foremost, this is my second album. My first album's called Closer Than They Appear. It's raw, it's dear to me, but it's far, far from perfect. That was sort of me finding my footing. I learned a lot from that, and this was the first album where I felt like I knew what I was doing, and I felt like a musician rather than somebody trying to make music. So with Beneath My Wings, it's only become possible because of how much music I've listened to and how many musicians I've spoken to within the past few years, watching their processes, listening to music that resonates with me because of the new things that it attempts to do. Now, I guess the easiest and most sensible starting point to touch on to answer this question is the aspect of personnel, who I want to bring on a song, where they fit, etc. I like to strike a balance between bringing people onto a song where I can hear them immediately and also having that song be like nothing that they've done before in their catalog. So, for example, the first song, was it the first song? Might have been the second song of the second single that come out, 100 Years. For that, I tapped in with Shane Dillon, who produced a few songs on the album or co-produced. Shout out him. He's moving out to LA. By the time this comes out, he'll already be out there. We miss you, buddy.
Big shout out to Shane Dillon. It goes without saying how many times I've said on this show how much I just respect Shane Dillon, not only as a musician but as a person. So you already know how much love I got you, Shane. We love you so much. So then it's not just us. There's so many people in Massachusetts that absolutely adore that guy.
Right.
He's gonna do great things in LA.
Yeah, sure. And because of how many people, adore him and how many people he's worked with, which is dozens at this point.
Oh my God.
He's been the blueprint for me in terms of how far you can reach to create a collaboration that makes sense. He's worked with rock artists and soul artists and hip hop and R&B. Like, he's stretched all over the place as a piano player, composer, producer. So I knew he would be perfect to sort of kickstart this album where I'm trying to do all of those things, cross genres. So I brought him on for like a soulful hip hop fusion, sort of almost ballad like track in 100 Years. And the featured artist I had on that, who absolutely, blew me away with her feature, is Ray Kimura from the indie pop band Moxie. Comes from Brattleboro, Vermont. They've since, skyrocketed in popularity, 100,000 plus monthly Spotify listeners. She's great and she deserves this, and the whole band does. But like I said, she's indie pop, indie rock, but they're very groovy, very danceable. She has a very soulful, rich voice that you'd think of from like a soul singer, back in the days. And I was looking at their like artist playlists on Spotify, and they do something cool where they each list each band member from Moxie lists what music they've been listening to and inspiring them lately. And she had like a lot of SZA on there. She had like a couple like hip hop tracks. I was like, she's definitely like low key, like trying to break into this a little bit in my mind. So I was like, okay, I can hear you really well on this soul hip hop track. You don't have any soul or hip hop music out in its purity, but I know that you're gonna kill this if you want to do it. And she's like, I love this song, let's do it. And she delivered this R&B soul sort of the vibe that made her feel so at home, at least in my ears. Hopefully she felt the same way, that she fit really well. But I can't hear the song with anybody else on it, and I spent so long looking for somebody to who was right for that song, and she killed it. And that was just one of a handful of lessons I've had at this point, where it's like, talk to people and see what they're willing to do and how much they want to branch out. And maybe I could be the catalyst for something new for them, which is so gratifying to me. And I might, emerge with something different than any of their fans have ever heard before, you know? So I feel like I did that on a handful of songs on this album. There were other parts to your question too.
Yeah, no, I think you answered it pretty well. I was just saying more or less of like, you know, what was where does it come from, like the inspiration and the like where do you fall back in terms of having like that instinct to make those decisions as an executive producer on, you know, certain melodies to use or production or like you were saying collaborators. That was a great example. I'm glad you said that. In terms of like some of these other songs, are there any highlights that you've had in that you can, or any like standout moments? I'm sure there were so many, but any that come to mind quickly in terms of thinking about like this process over the last 3 years and making this album? Like, was there a moment in the studio with a certain collaborator or collaborators where you were like, damn, we got something here? Or maybe when you got a mix back or a feature back or whatever it is? Because I'm sure some of this was done, like you saying, like live instrumentation in person. Some of it I'm sure was maybe sending things back and forth. But like for you, was there like a moment or a few moments you can touch on within creating this process and like maybe giving us a glimpse into the process a little bit?
Sure. I like the phrasing you use with the "we got something here," right? Because I feel like I'm always creating. I can do a whole lot, but there are those moments where, you know, where you feel like this could be special. So I won't get into the whole thing again with Beneath My Wings, but that was certainly one where the live instrumentation came together. Jazz Altman returned the instrumental after I sent him an a cappella. But I think another one was my song Let's Go Back. We didn't
With Guillaume.
Yeah, with Guillaume. So I'm about to get a little bit into him, and you've already heard what he can do. I call Guillaume my secret weapon, because he doesn't have a huge following on Spotify or even on socials. He has a bashful side to him, where I don't think he quite knows how spectacular he is. But everybody who hears him is blown away. And I sent him this song that's sort of like a folk rock inspired, I guess you could call it a pop song.
It has pop elements to it.
It has pop elements to it. And this is a guy I'd worked with a couple times, but we hadn't had, you know, any songs released or anything like that. I met him at an open mic. And I sent him this thing that was sort of in his comfort zone, but he's never done something with sort of, you know, as intense of hip hop R&B elements as this project as a whole. So I was really excited to include him here. And he just sent back this verse that I played it on my car speakers, and like I got goosebumps. I got emotional when I heard the him layer the hook. Let's make a new work of art. Like this is running goes on at the end that just like, and it all breaks down. It was just like, wow, like one of those super powerful things where that'll hit somebody and they'll be like, whoa. So
even when you guys performed it here at the album release event that we did here for you, I think it really, I mean, I want to speak for everybody, but everybody in the room, I think, felt like, damn, that kind of struck a chord, and I felt like it did for me. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, he's special. He's got a special sort of way about him that, and then, you know what? I think it's almost interesting that you say he's bashful in the sense of him not realizing how spectacular he is. I think in a way, or in many ways, that makes him even more, like, it makes me want to gravitate towards him more.
He is the whole package, and I really do want to spend a small piece of this podcast talking about him, because he is one of my biggest inspirations and very favorite artists on the planet, period. But he's the whole package. He's, you know, hilarious on TikTok. Obviously, he has his beautiful voice. He's a multi-instrumentalist. The first time I saw him, he played guitar, piano, and ukulele, and sang in an N95 mask over it, sounding beautiful. He's conventionally attractive. Like, he's just one of those people where you can see him on TV or, you know, nowadays just all over social media if he wants it. It's just a matter of, you know, how far can you go with the marketing and getting, you know, yourself put in front of the right people to get noticed like everybody needs to. But I'm like, tell them all the time, it's like, you go out and get it, or you let me and the collective, you know, help lift you up. The sky is below the limit for you, you know, like he's got it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is just incredible. What he's able to do, and like really, you were an entry point to him for me. So I'm very grateful for that as well. That he was here and he was able to, you know, do what he did and clearly do what he did on your album. I want to shift gears slightly to the Black. Is it? So I don't never really understand how I pronounce it with the V's. It always gets me confused.
Black Sam.
Is it Black Sam?
Black
Okay.
Sam.
I want to say Black Swim for like the longest time. All right, Black Sam. So getting someone like him on the project, you know, what was it like for you to get somebody that is a little bit, you know, you punched a little bit above your weight there to get that feature, and that's not a knock on you. That's just like, you know, just where Black Sam is at the moment. What was that like to, you know, get a cosign from someone like him and to be like, yeah, I want to be a part of this song, My Story, with him and Lib, which is one of my personal highlights.
I'm glad. Yeah. So this was made possible by the first, I guess, big feature, if you will, that I got. The first, what I consider a big feature that I got was the remix to my very first song ever, Feel Me. That I got Davion on from, she's like a Dreamville affiliate, who was on Revenge of the Dreamers 3. She had the hook on Sleep Deprived. I loved her thing. She had expressed that she would be open to features, and she really gave me like a really solid deal. I did pay her, but it gave me a really solid deal because she loved the song. And yeah, and she's Grammy nominated because of that album, and like that was one of the moments where I was like, wait, I can do this. Like, these people aren't entirely inaccessible. So I'm very grateful to her for you know, being so enthusiastic. She was great to work with, very complimentary and super sweet. She's since been working with like Alicia Keys, like some awesome stuff. But you know, coming into Beneath My Wings, I was like, all right, I'm back for more. And I want this to elevate me. So I'd been following Black Sam ever since I heard his song Gristle as an Instagram ad, which I think has millions of listeners on that ad, but also millions and millions of listeners on Spotify and whatnot. His song Bleach just cleared 10 mil, I think. Wow. And I caught him at a good time where he was certainly blowing up, but wasn't getting a ton of money off of it. So he was open to features for those he really liked. And you know, nowadays he's charging $2,000 a feature. He'll say that out flat. So I caught him at a good time, but also, again, my song was good enough so that he'd be like, yeah, I really want to be on this song. This really feels like me. And you know, we worked it out, and it was very, you know, gratifying to know that somebody who now, you know, just released a song with Mick Jenkins, who's been an idol of mine for so long, also finds me just as worth his time and effort in the studio to, you know, deliver a verse for. So super thankful and super great to see him, you know, skyrocket to the point where now he's making a living off of this, doing tours across the country and all that. You know, it makes my world feel a little smaller.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you kind of already answered it, but maybe to go off that a little bit more, like, how validating is that for you, for these two artists in particular? Like, of course, it's so great to be part of something that's grassroots and work with people that are your peers. And there's so much that fulfillment that can come from that. But in terms of the sort of validation of two artists like that to say, yeah, like your songs are worth my time. Like, what does that feel like? Like, what is that, if you can describe it in words?
Sure. It's incredibly validating. And I'll be the first to say that I don't have career aspirations as a musician per se, in that I'm banking on getting rich from this. Whatever happens with how hard I'm working, and I work just as hard as anybody else, if not more. And like whatever comes of that, but I'm just, having fun, trying to get better, being myself, and putting out what I think is good music. And when I have those aspirations or affirmations rather from these big industry artists or even big indie artists, it's a testament not only to perhaps my vocal talent and even my how I executive produce, but also my ear, because so much of a song, the credit goes to the producers as well. I'm sure a lot of the hook to line and sync a lot of these artists who otherwise would be unattainable is the production. They hear the vibe, the beat, and they're like, ooh, this is something I really can get down with. So it's just as nice to get that affirmation in terms of what I do as a recording artist as it is for somebody to be like, yeah, your taste in music is really good. Because like I said, I love listening to great music as much as I love making it.
Yeah. No, I would definitely reiterate that you have a great taste. We've gone back and forth many times on, things I'm working on. You've always been a good ear and very hopeful for that, and other artists that I work with and that are in the scene as well. I think you definitely have a valid ear for that. And, again, congratulations on such an unbelievable body of work. Like, I really am so happy for you. I'm so glad that you were able to get to this point to put this thing out. And I feel like it's going to propel you so much going forward. So if you have not heard Beneath My Wings yet, you got to check it out. It's linked in the description below. Don't go anywhere yet, because we're about to have some fun now. Like, that was all insightful and great and inspirational potentially. We're going to have some fun. So don't go anywhere. All right. But after this episode, you definitely want to go give that album a nice spin. You're going to find a lot of things on there. Of course, it wouldn't be a Turntable Teachers episode without a pop quiz. So, yep.
I'm scared.
This is always, I am waiting. Artists, like anybody listening to this, I'm waiting for somebody to come on here and be excited for pop quiz. Every single time it's like, oh no, like maybe it's just the fact that like the connotation of a pop quiz from your childhood is just not something.
Bro, I did 2 decades of school to not do these anymore.
Well, the questions are about you, so hopefully like it'll be a little bit easier. Okay. For anybody that doesn't know, Pop Quiz is a segment where I ask the guest, in this particular instance, Julian Mendoza, rapid-fire questions about themselves. Some of them have to do with music. Some have absolutely nothing to do with music. It's just things that I have found because I do my research. So, are you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
You should. Yeah. Again, we're going to start off easy, and then they get progressively a little bit more, tougher, we'll say, or a little bit more in-depth.
All right.
First thing I want to know, you've been known to have a lot of lookalikes. Who do you get paired to the most in terms of looks?
Oh my gosh, lookalikes. I've gotten Bruno Mars a lot. People have said Anderson .Paak, and they also compare me to Anderson .Paak.
So you might as well should just be in Silk Sonic.
So short answer, Silk Sonic. Yes.
Bruno and Anderson.
Yes.
He's got to be the third member. All right, Bruno and Anderson .Paak. If Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak had a baby, it might be you actually.
Yeah, you don't Photoshop anything and superimpose it on the screen, please. Nobody wants to see that.
It's on there. I don't know what to tell you. What's the most far-fetched story you've ever covered as a journalist that you could think of off the top of your head?
Oh,
like just why, like something that we wouldn't believe that happened out in Western Mass, in Greenfield.
Oh my gosh, I have to be PC too. I'm gonna cheat a little bit and use my coworkers because I
That's
think
fine.
it's funnier.
That's fine.
My boy Chris, shout out Chris Larrabee, fantastic journalist, has been he's been hard at work covering a potential topless dispensary coming out to Western Mass, where it's sort of like a strip club weed dispensary at the same time.
What?
That's our reaction too, and he's dug his teeth into it, and he's still like, what? I'm not exactly sure where they're at with that, but it's funnier when you consider it's in the middle of nowhere in Western Mass, where it's just grass and cows. So there's a bunch of people who are getting weed and seeing, some attractive women without shirts. So who knows? Maybe it's the future of business. Invest early.
Okay. I guess that is pretty interesting.
You asked for an interesting one.
I got it. Thank you. I guess Western Mass folks. You're gonna have droves of people driving out to Western Mass for this now. It's gonna be like the main attraction.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna have droves of stoner men going out to Western Mass now.
Oh yeah.
They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to get some attraction
Really?
out there. I get it. I understand. Okay. One gotta go. So if one of these did not exist in the world, and you could only keep the other, which would you keep? Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
That's so mean, bro.
I know.
Oh my god. This is like harder than choosing a favorite song. When we're talking about like choosing your favorite child, like this is that. Lord of the Rings has the better movies. Star Wars has the better lore. Star Wars has the better like expanded universe. Like read about it. Has the better video games. Assuming you're just talking about the movies without getting too complicated, I'm taking Lord of the Rings.
So Star Wars would go.
Star Wars would have to go.
Understood. Okay. Favorite mountain or trail you've ever hiked, and what's one on your bucket list?
That's a great one. The last one I did was the most gratifying because it was the highest. It was Mount Katahdin, which is the end of the Appalachian Trail. I just did that with my dad. It's one of the things I'm most thankful for is that he comes on these mountain hikes with me. He introduced me to it. My favorite might be Franconia Notch.
That's my favorite
it's
too.
Fantastic.
I love the Franconia Notch.
Fantastic. So much fun. Bucket list. I would love to do something like totally different because most of the stuff I've done is like in the Northeast in terms of like mountain hikes. I'd love to do like something in like Utah or something like that.
That's on my list.
Out west or
maybe we head out there together, honestly, and
country?
do some shit.
Let's talk.
Like we got it.
Let's talk.
Yeah. All right. Off air. Yeah, we'll definitely talk. Out west is my next. I've done a ton in New Hampshire. I've done a ton in Maine. All that, right? Vermont. I've done a little bit of the Smoky Mountains.
There you go.
But yeah, my next is out there for sure. I'm a big hiker too. I was very interested. But yeah, no, Utah, Yellowstone, somewhere in Montana.
I
Somewhere out
love
there.
Yellowstone. I would love to hike there. I visited there for a handful of days, and it was the most magical experience I ever had.
I gotta get out there, man.
Yeah.
I have to get out there. Okay. Does peanut butter or avocado make for a better spread,
Yo,
and why? I know you.
I really hope you guys didn't see this Instagram story. I'm ashamed. I need to go to, get evaluated.
Did you put the avocado on the chocolate chip muffin?
I did.
That's
this video.
disgusting.
Yes, I'm aware. But the people wanted it. And when the good people of America call, I have to answer. All right.
The burning question: how did it taste?
Okay. It was. You want the honest truth?
Yes.
It wasn't bad.
I don't believe
it wasn't bad. It had the nice. What I said in this video is that it had the nice match of the sweet and the savory. Avocado is used sometimes to like supplement like cake icing. I think like it's used as like a hidden ingredient. Yeah, and like a bunch of different weird shit you wouldn't expect. So it's just one of those things where don't knock it till you try it. I'll leave it at that.
Don't knock it till you try it. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think I will be trying that. I mean, again, I'm not a picky eater. Like I like a lot of food. The only thing I don't like, fun fact. So this is a little hidden gem for anybody that maybe would ever have me on the show. If you ever want to try this on me, I hate tomatoes, raw tomatoes. No, if I get a burger,
Grow up, bro. Grow up.
Don't grow. Okay. if I get a burger, sandwich, anything that has tomatoes on it, like I'm borderline. Like I don't even want to pick it off. Like I don't even want like the residue. I don't like it, but I love tomato flavored things. Or like if the tomatoes are cooked, I'll eat them. I'm very strange when it comes to that, but that's like my only thing. But anyway, peanut butter or avocado. I guess we'll do the same thing. One gotta go. You know, if you only have one for the rest of your life, peanut butter or avocado.
All this being said, peanut butter clears. Peanut butter goes on almost everything.
It's way more versatile.
It's way more versatile. You know, you have it in desserts. You have it on in Filipino dishes. You have kare kare, which is oxtail with peanut butter and green beans, which is a delicacy to Filipinos. I shouldn't even be saying this because I don't like it. But it goes to show that there are people who will like peanut butter on everything. There's peanut sauce on Thai noodles. So that's all I'm saying. It's like it's so versatile. Everything.
Yeah, I would agree. I think overall peanut butter is a little bit more versatile. But I do like avocado too, man. Don't get me wrong. I know you're a big fan of both, and I just wanted to find a way to put them. I know they're so very different foods. Okay. As a coffee addict and a smoothie connoisseur, what are your go-to orders for each?
Oh man. Yeah, like I'm definitely way like deep in the coffee game, and I really appreciate like a nice refined cup of coffee.
Yeah, like you're not a Dunkin' Starbucks guy. Like you like the coffee shops.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say at the same time, I'll also take what I can get. I just love coffee. But it sort of depends. When I'm at like any Joe Schmo coffee shop, I'll usually just get a regular hot coffee, milk and sugar, nothing crazy, just to see how their coffee is. Mm-hmm. But if I go to like a really nice coffee shop, like in New York or something when I'm visiting, I scan their menu for something, you know, interesting or a little sweet in terms of like usually a latte. So like some of the best coffee. No, I'll reference the one that I had yesterday. I was at a really nice coffee shop called Farmer's Horse in I think it was in Roxbury still, is somewhere in Boston, and I had a banana bread latte.
Ooh.
That was delicious.
That sounds really good, actually.
Banana
if I was a coffee drinker.
Banana and coffee. I don't know what it is. A lot of people will be hating on bananas this year.
Why is banana bananas getting a lot of hate?
Bananas get a lot of hate. People are
what?
saying it's like gross fruit. Like there's a lot of banana ops out there. But for all the banana ops, also I think you need to. You honestly, like you can't talk tomato boy, but you know. But no, bananas.
Tomato boy.
Tomato
okay.
boy. No, but
shots are being fired.
Yeah, no, I almost had to leave after you said that. But no, bananas and coffee, elite combination.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So what about smoothies then? Because I know you suck down smoothies like it's your job. Like you just like drink them so fast.
Yeah. No, I get a smoothie mostly after I play like basketball or something like that because I'll end up starving and also thirsty. And what better to solve that than a smoothie? I love the good old strawberry banana, but you know anything with
strawberry banana.
Strawberry banana is the way to go. But I also like anything with mango.
Mango's good.
And going back to peanut butter. Peanut butter is fantastic in smoothies.
Ooh,
if you
absolutely.
If you have peanut butter and banana or peanut butter chocolate and banana or Nutella, I'm there.
Gorgeous.
Like
I've been big on the acai bowls lately.
Yeah. I don't eat them as much as I would like to because the amount that I've had I've had very few, but they're delicious.
I love acai bowls. Delicious. Get nice, cup strawberries, blueberries, bananas, and then a little bit of peanut butter drizzle, some Nutella, that acai, maybe a little coconut shredded over it.
You're reminding me I hardly ate today. My stomach is
so maybe something he'll get after this. I love it. Speaking of basketball, and be honest, okay? So I know we tried to do this over summer, it just didn't work out. But if it's you, your dad, and Ezra, a game of one-on-one, who usually wins when it comes to that?
Ezra usually busts my ass, but we're getting closer. I'm creeping up on him. He used to beat me almost every time when we were growing up. He got bigger head start than I did to playing basketball. He had his formative years where he was playing since 3rd grade, and I started late into middle school. So I had a lot of catching up to do, and he's just really fundamentally solid, really smart, great finisher. He can score from everywhere. I'm the best shooter in the family, like
Okay.
3-point shooter. So,
Okay.
I'm slowly filling out my skill set, and when we match up, when I visit him in Brooklyn, we'll play 1-on-1. I could win half the games nowadays,
Okay.
which is an improvement.
There you go.
Long
There you
answer.
go. I love it. And just recently won at Hoop Hop.
Yeah.
So big shout out to you and the squad. You're on Ant Thomas's team, right?
Ant Thomas's team. Shout out Ant Thomas and my squad. Yeah, I was a rookie on that team. Playing a support role there. Got a couple nice steals and a couple nice rebounds as my primary contribution. But
All that matters is the hardware, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
the
matters
hardware.
is
We
the
got the
championship.
dub, and I'm happy to, just like in music, take a back seat and let the team eat.
Yeah, I love it. It's awesome. All right, this is going to be a rapid fire now. There's 4 questions left. They're all true or false. Okay. So true or false, your Destiny record signed by the Jacksons is your most prized possession.
How do you know this exists?
I don't reveal my sources on air.
Man.
Which your mom gave you, correct?
Yeah. It would be false.
Really?
I don't
Okay.
have time to get into what the most valuable would be, but it's very prized. I will say that.
It's a prized possession, but not your most. Okay,
Not
so
my
false. True or false? Your favorite band is Of Monsters and Men, and your favorite video game is Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering is a card game. so
Sorry, my bad. I thought
It is okay. It is my favorite card game, and
card
Of
game?
Monsters and Men is certifiably my favorite band. Yes, and they have been since late middle school, which is very funny. They're like folk rock from Iceland, so very much not my comfort zone in terms of making music, but
Yeah.
they're fantastic.
Love it. All right, here we go. This is the one everyone's been waiting for. True or false? You believed in Santa for way too long, to the point that your younger brother Ezra gave up on believing before you did.
Wow. This man knows me better than I know myself. It's true. It's true. Yeah, no. Ezra was the problem child. He was always trying to be
The younger brother. We all
stir the pot a little bit in so many different ways. He's the little rascal of the group. But I wanted to believe, so I tried to hold out hope.
You're like, he might be. I think he is. No.
Yeah. Sorry, it's like thanks Michael Jackson for the jetpack thing, 'cause that's what led to the conversation, as I said before.
Oh, too funny. Awesome. All right, last one. True or false? Your dream relationship would be with another musical artist, so that way you can support them in the way that they can support you, type deal. You would love that reciprocation.
I'm single, ladies. Is yes.
Musician ladies.
Yeah, musician ladies. Yeah, no, it's very important to me. First and foremost, I just want my partner to be somebody who's passionate, sure of themselves, and likes to shine in whatever that may mean for them. And if it happens to be somebody who shares the medium in which they do it, we could just have so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
I hope it's in my future.
I love it. Well, great job on Pop Quiz. Round of applause. You totally get in there. Good job. I know those were to some
It freaked
deeper
me out.
questions.
Freaked me out, but
You did well. So I want to get back into the main lesson. I want to talk to you about performing, because I feel like that's such an integral part of you as an entertainer, as a creative, as an artist. You're just a really engaging performer, whether it be from singing, rapping, your stage presence, your dancing, your engagement with the crowd, all of it. So you've had a bunch of performances lately. You've done, I had to write them down because there were so many, Hope Fest, Summer Village, your performances in New York at Mercury Lounge. You had your album release event here, which you, of course, performed and had performances. You've done a lot of performances with Bars Over Bars. So which performance as of late has been like the most fulfilling for you? And then why does the performance part or piece of artistry as a whole, like, why do you hold such a high level of importance for it? Because I get the sense that it's an important part of it for you.
sure. I guess for the first part of the question, it's tough because there are there's so much to value about live performance, which I'm about to get into. There's so many things that I gain from it, whether it be, me really liking a venue versus the people I meet. But what really stuck in my head for a long time was the reception I received at Hope Fest in Salem. Well, first of all, not only was it a benefit event for NAGLI, which raises, money for LGBTQ plus youth, and does like resource stuff for them. So that felt really good.
Yeah. And we like AOA Studios, not to cut you off, we were sponsored there, and I want to give a very huge big shout out to Matt and Matt Perrone and his entire team, because they really just did a fantastic job with that.
I was telling other musicians about this. They were the most communicative organizers I have by far.
Well, it wasn't even close.
It was not close. And I've done, probably dozens of shows at some capacity at this point. Like, was not close to, the preparation, and communication, attention to detail. So it just made my life a lot more easy for something that was such a big deal. But also just after performing there, I don't know if it's the culture of Salem, or if it's just like it just brought out a lot of like kind-hearted people. It just so happened to be that way. But I was telling people that day of that show, I probably received more outspoken love for what I did at that than any other show I had in the past. I don't know, maybe I did really well, maybe my set was really good.
It was.
I'm glad you thought so. But it was just, I also think it goes to the credit of the people there that they were just, they found it in their best interest to approach me afterwards and be like, yo, I really loved your music, or say like, hey, you changed my mind about this style of music, which happens a lot, and that is one of the biggest compliments I can have. So that it was just really good vibes, that whole thing. So shout out Hope Fest. I really hope, in whatever capacity I get to be a part of it again, and that it just keeps growing in the future.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then in terms of performance, like for you, like what to reiterate the second half?
Yeah.
What makes performing so important or integral as the piece of artistry for you? Because I could just get the sense you put a lot of effort into that side of things. So I'm just curious for you, like, does it go back to the Michael Jackson thing? Like, or is it just like a combination of different things that you've had over the course of the last few years?
Sure. Well, Michael Jackson certainly was, my entryway into realizing not only how important performance can be, but also how far you can go with it. Down to his music videos, almost like feature film type things.
Totally.
But there's just so much we can do with music. Music is a soundtrack, whether it be in a literal sense, or sort of more abstract. In this case of performance, such as a concert, music is a soundtrack to the environment and the people who are there and the vibes that are going on in the atmosphere. So I try to be conducive to that vibe with everything else I'm capable of. I danced competitively for 8 years, and I don't do it strictly dance centric much anymore, but I still carry it over into what I do with my music, and a lot of my music's danceable, so I try to break out some of that. I'll even break dance on stage sometimes. I try to connect with my musicians, make facial expressions. I just had a really nice performance the other night with somebody in Lawrence, where we were playing off each other the entire night. Shout out Krithi, who's fantastic.
Love Krithi. Another good friend of the show.
Yeah, good friend of the show. But the other thing is, people come for this. If they want to just hear my music, or anyone's music for that matter, they have Spotify or Apple Music or whatever they listen to. People come for an experience. So I feel like I'd be shortchanging, especially those who pay or even just take the time out of their day to come see me, if I don't give it the most entertainment value it could have. And I've been firsthand disappointed by, some. I feel like it's a problem in hip hop a lot too, where it's like people come in with their backing tracks and like all their vocals like still on it, and they just perform their ad libs sort of just standing still, and it's like you're not really doing anything for the people who took the time out of their day to see something special that they can't get anywhere else. They can always look at your face or whatever, but like there's a different vibe when you come and you dance, or you vary the arrangement of a song a little bit, bring in new instruments that weren't on the studio track. Like so much potential with the stage, and I just try to be as innovative with my performance as I am when I arrange, record, conceptualize music.
Love that answer. And if you haven't seen Julian Mendoza perform, be on the lookout for any performances he might have throughout the rest of the year, and then definitely in 2024 you got to get out and see this guy perform. He's an absolute treat. What's the preparation, like my last question on this topic, between like when you have the full live band versus just yourself? Because you've done obviously a mix of both, so I'm curious, like, is it easier for you when it's just by yourself, and on the other hand with the full band, like, does that feel different? Is there like a different cathartic feeling when you have the band behind you?
Way easier when I just do it myself with backing tracks. There's no tricks or gimmicks with the instrumental, so I know exactly what to expect because I've listened to my music a million times and I'm the one who made it. But with a live band, you have the beauty of variation. Sometimes we have intentional improvisation. Sometimes we even slip up and we have to catch back up with each other, and especially because with how busy I am and how busy everybody is, like we have musicians who substitute for other musicians, and we have sparse rehearsal time, and there's a lot of things that could equate to not having everything down to a formula yet. I try to find as much beauty in that as possible, and I sort of like how each one of my performances comes out a little different. And to answer that part of your question about catharsis, absolutely. I think not only does my music simply sound better with a live band, as a lot of people's music does, but there's something so almost like telepathic about everybody in sync with each other and all musicians locked into the same thing. And when it's my music, something that I worked so hard on, it's like straight up trippy thinking about people pouring their creativity and their souls into something that came from my head, like so many people. So it's been really nice that I've had these instrumentalist friends down to do this stuff, sometimes with little to no pay at all associated, just because they love my music. A lot of them love me as a person, or at least really value my friendship. And we just have such a good time making music, and that common thread is what binds us together, even when the bag doesn't.
Absolutely, I love it. Speaking of making music with others, I want to talk about Async, because your relationship with Nick and the entire Async collective, many of whom are in New York, but really I know that it's like very spread out. So can you explain sort of how, to anybody that doesn't know, how you got sort of in touch, or how you came to become close with someone like Nick, and then the Async collective as a whole, and like what like the sort of mission statement, if you will, or like goal of the collective is?
It's one of those things. I'm not sure I believe in the conventional sense of fate, but the timing was perfect, how I connected with Nick. I literally got his song as an Instagram ad that was getting quite popular at the time. I loved it. I had just released my first album, and was ready. I was hungry for more. I wanted to go on like a feature run, or just a collaboration run. So I was like, hey, I got this ad of yours. I really love your song. It really resonated with me. This is what I do. If you happen to ever need another voice for anything, or felt like branching out and, working with somebody new, I'm in your corner. Just say the word. Would love to do something. And I sent that to quite a few people. But A, he happened to be one of my very favorites from that group. B, he was one of the couple that actually responded and responded thoughtfully and with intention. He told me about Async, which is this creative collective. At the time, he was just getting off the ground. He was like, yo, thank you so much for reaching out. I really appreciate that. Glad you like this song. It's funny that you sort of propose this right now, because I, in my life, am trying to get this collective going where it combines a bunch of musicians of different styles, walks of life, and approaches, to just see what we can do with it, see what we can make out of it. So I guess one thing led to another. We made our first song, Nostalgia, and that just showed both of us how much we loved working with each other. We really resonated as people. By now, he's a brother to me, and I love him. He loves me. And it's grown from there. I've actually taken initiative as sort of like the A&R person per se for Async to bring even more musicians to the conversation and to the table to make some crazy stuff. So yeah, we've really built it up to be this sort of multimedia space where we book shows, and we not only work on production and share lyrics and mingle with each other in that way, but like we have people who are visually inclined who participate in that sense, visual arts. So we really just want to make it like, it's weird because we want to make it like more amorphous in that it encompasses so much, but also really establish an identity so that when people see Async, it's like they're a titan of what they do. So you'll have to stay tuned as we keep growing, but it's been a couple of years now that I've been with this group that feels like family to me, and I travel to make music with them, and it's just been so enriching.
And then this initially got started on, or like where it lives is a Discord server, is that correct?
Yeah, we do most of our I guess I don't like to say business, but most of our work in collaboration with each other, we communicate through Discord. We have different threads where, for example, there's a beats and production thread where the producers, such as Nick is also a producer in addition to a vocalist, and shout out Harrison Lau, he's a producer, and a few others really active on there. They'll cook up a beat, even if it's just like a rough sketch or a concept, send it through and just be like, yo, this is what I was working on today. If any vocalist, vibes with it, would love to, hear you do your thing. And a lot of the time, a vocalist, whether it be me or somebody else, will go like, ooh, I really like this. I have an idea for it. Like, give me a couple days. I'll send a demo back and then build it from there. So that could be reverse engineered to somebody sends like a lyrics in the cipher, thread that we have. And there could be a producer being like, yo, I want to build around this. This is fire. So a lot of back and forth and brainstorming happens there.
So first off, I just think that is so cool in the sense of being able to build something like that seemingly from nothing, and even though it's not a physical space, like for a place for people to feel like they can collaborate with different people and know that everybody's kind of in there for the same reason. I love that. It's definitely a lot. I think it's definitely more of a community build, even than, let's say, you were on like Instagram per se, and like you already have your quote unquote people that follow you and all that stuff. It's like you have a specific space for, okay, we're not even going to worry about posting and likes and comments and all this thing. It's like, this is just the space we have to create. So I mean, I hope, and I'm sure that more people do this than maybe I know, but I still think that is so awesome that you have a place like that. You have people that you trust and that care about the same things. So that is so much. It's invaluable.
Yeah, and it's like for the love of it too. And you were talking a little bit about the concept of doing things expecting nothing in return.
Right.
The generosity that, Nick especially has shown me, not only the time but also the money that he's put in to stuff for me is like, I'm gonna have to figure out something very, very special to repay him, because he's never expected anything in return. He's just done it because he adores music. He adores me. He adores what he does. And he's, built himself up to a place where he can support it to the extent that he does. So I'm just very thankful to have him and other people like that in my corner with this. Should not go unmentioned.
Awesome. Big shout out to Nick V. Got to meet him when he came through for your open album release party, and that was just a pleasure. So appreciate you and everything you're doing for independent artists. It's a really beautiful thing. I got one final segment in the main lesson before we get to the final section or segment of the show. This is, of course, I want to talk to you a little bit about your journalism and photography background and what you do there. So as a writer specifically, I'm kind of curious how, like, the difference between writing songs and then writing, like, articles, what is the different sort of headspace that you need to be in to do both of those? How do you balance that exactly? Like, I'm just kind of curious about, because those are two very different mediums of writing. Like, how are you able to not, like, burn yourself out on either end, so to speak, I guess
I wouldn't go that far. I definitely burn myself out, but
okay.
I definitely burn myself out. I'm certainly experiencing burnout now, but that's not to say I don't love both, because obviously I do. I wouldn't be doing them if I didn't, not getting rich off of either.
Clearly, yeah.
But
journalism, of course,
yeah,
no, definitely, yeah,
for sure.
Neither,
but I guess there's some crossover between the two. Are you asking sort of like about the process of producing?
Yeah, I guess, when you're gonna sit down and write a song versus writing an article for the paper. I'm just curious of, like, what that looks like when you're
Sure.
like, is it more based on, my guess is that there's spontaneity in both, in a sense, because if a story just pops up in your newspaper is like, oh, hey, you got to go cover this.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be in that space to, like,
Right.
go and write that. Or maybe if, like, an idea just comes in your head to write a song, you might not have consciously said, I'm going to sit down and write today, but now you're in that mode in writing. So I'm just kind of curious of, like, is there a similarity there? Or am I off base completely?
No,
or?
not at all. I think in that respect, it's one of the elements I hadn't thought about as much, but it definitely is true. I guess the biggest similarity is starting a song and starting a journalism article is the hardest part of the process. It's
Starting. Yeah.
Starting is the hardest part of the process. So I guess a lot of it is just about building momentum. I approach headlines, and I make this joke in the not headlines, but like leads to the story. I approach it in the same way as like writing a bar. I have this joke. I have jokes with my coworkers where I'm like, yo, the bar that I'm starting with this story with is crazy. And like a lot of the time it will be like a double entendre or something like that. So like that's how I sort of get myself into the groove. And like journalism's funny because it's like you have to find this sweet spot where you have some element of creative flair, but it has to be very tasteful, of course. And it also has to adhere to a structure that makes sense and is formalized as a journalistic piece. So finding that middle ground has been really fun for me. And that's really a parallel that I've come across with music, where it's like you have the confines of a beat or the confines of some subject matter where like you can't go do whatever you want, like unless you're Blueface and want to like, run off the beat intentionally and just go hog wild, but it's not my style particularly. You have this structure that you need to adhere to, and you have, hook, verse, bridge, parts of a song that just like you have what's called an inverted pyramid in journalism, where you start with a lead and then have a ton of important information in the nut graph, and then sort of work down from there. Like both have a structure to adhere to, but there's some wiggle room in terms of, how you go about composing that in a way that makes sense on a case-by-case basis. And that just really depends on your ear as a musician, or your taste and savvy as a journalist, to be able to, like, almost, I want to say, like, read the room of journalism, understand how you structure something might be received.
Interesting. Oh, that's, I never thought of, like, the dichotomy, I guess, between the two, and thinking about that. That's so cool. Where I thought that there was maybe some, when I asked, I was like, maybe there's some overlap there, but that's really dope, man. And I love that. And you've written for us freelance once when we collaborated on the Uno Hype show as well, which was such a great, and then the Johan Lennox one as well. So you did two, I should say. That's right. And so you guys can check out those articles. They are on our turntableteachers.com website. Julian, thank you so much for this episode, man. Like, I had so much fun. This is clearly long overdue, but I'm glad we did it now once you had the album out, and a lot more to talk about. And I'm just so happy to, I'm going to take a bite off you a little bit, and just how lovely it's been to watch you grow and to, like, watch your progression. And we talked about this briefly, and I want to mention this because, like, how many times we've been in collaborative spaces together, like, when you performed at the show I threw earlier in the summer, and then some of the other ones as well, like, obviously here, I kind of had to be on, so to speak, and, like, work, you know what I mean? It was, I was working the event or whatever, both really. And then the Hope Fest one in particular, to be able to, like, actually sit down and, like, watch it as a fan was such a awesome experience, and I'm so glad I got to watch that one. And I just think it's just been special, and your energy, you've been such a light to so many people, and I know so many people have been a light to you, but that has definitely gone both ways. So I just want to really I appreciate everything you've done in the scene and what you will continue to do, and I think this is only sort of the beginning for you.
Thank you so much. And it means the world. I feel like in entertainment, especially, like, even just music specifically aside, just entertainment, it's supposed to be expressive. It's supposed to be warm. It's supposed to be something that's hyper emotional. And far too often with, all sorts of platforms and people who are trying to make things for themselves, it's like they lose touch of that just because they get caught up in the grind of everything.
Yeah.
And it's like,
which is easy to do.
Easy to do. Oh yeah. And I feel like there have been cases where I've been there and try to snap myself out of it. But, Turntable Teachers has been doing this for years now. And you've built yourself up. You've met so many people. You've connected with so many people. I'm just one of many. So just to always feel so valued, more than welcome, but valued, appreciated, and, have had the care you've taken in, like, literally researching, like, into who I am for a podcast episode like this. It's just like, if everybody did that, the cliche of the world would be a better place is, like, it's the, you can go beyond that. Like, you're really doing something here.
Thank you, man. No, this is, like, what I like doing. I like, getting people a little bit vulnerable out of their shell. Maybe this would be a much different experience than you get on a normal podcast. So that's my goal at the end of the day, is to, and then humanize the people that come in here, because there is a human that makes this music. It's, we all go through similar struggles or have similar things. I'm sure that's why I get so deep on the pop quiz stuff. It's like that becomes almost the relatable stuff. Someone might have been watching this going, oh, Michael Jackson was a huge inspiration for me, or I believed in Santa Claus 15. Like, who knows?
I still believe in Santa.
He's real, okay? He's real. Santa.
He's real.
Open response, dream song scenario. Our fans, or I should say listeners, I don't like calling them fans. Listeners of the podcast know this by now. If you are just coming on to us for the first time, we do the dream song scenario, which is where we ask the artist, producer, whoever comes on the show, if they had a dream song, who would be on it. I'll structure for you. You get a song, 2 producers, or 1 to 2 producers if you just want one, that's fine, and up to 3 guest artists. It's your song, and anyone can be on the song, dead or alive. Who would be on Julian Mendoza's dream song scenario? Take as much time as you need.
I appreciate that.
We might be here for an extra hour.
Yeah,
so
I know. Well, I was gonna say,
just kidding.
For an artist like me, this is so hard because my influences come from all over the place. But maybe that'll help me create something interesting. I'm gonna try to hone it in to be somewhat cohesive. But alive or dead is the first question.
Oh yeah,
Like that. Okay.
yeah. Any artist,
any artist
that's
ever.
ever created anything ever.
Give me Beethoven and Playboy Cardi. That's all I need. No, I'm kidding. Shout out
Give that to
Mendoza.
Johan Lennox. He'd probably do something.
Yeah,
with it.
Johan would do that. Shout out Johan. Anything's possible. But let's see. Producers. That's gonna be the hardest one to start with. But I'm gonna go with. While I do think like Kanye may be the greatest producer of all time, like my style isn't really sample based, so I might have to forgo that. I'm gonna go with. Let's go with Jay Dilla.
Ooh.
Okay. Let's go with Jay Dilla for the structure of a hip hop song. Okay. And now I want somebody to compliment Jay Dilla, who's very apart from that. Give me Quincy Jones.
We just had both of those pretty recently. I think Chase picked Jay Dilla, and then Derek Tyler just picked Quincy Jones. So that's interesting. But they separated. They didn't both pick them. So.
I was flopping between
I like that.
Jay Dilla and like Nuja Bass. Like I want somebody who's like very well within my hip hop vibe.
Yeah.
But I'll go Jay Dilla, Quincy Jones. I'm gonna walk off this podcast and be like, oh, should have said this person. But they're legends, so I can't be too frustrated.
No.
3 featured artists. Give me Smino.
Ooh.
100%.
Smino.
Number 1 favorite rapper, hip hop artist in the world.
I love Smino.
Potentially alive or dead. Number 1. Give me. I'll take Michael Jackson.
Okay.
I'll take Michael Jackson.
Okay. I think him and Smino could do something interesting. Their cadences kind of fit.
Yeah.
And yours.
Smino can do anything.
Yeah.
That's why he's a perfect. He'll be the Draymond Green of this song.
I love it.
Like,
First time I saw him, he had a live band.
Yeah.
At
Smino
Paradise.
did?
Yeah. At Paradise Rock Club.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. I was at that show. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
With Earth Gang?
Yep.
Really?
Hoopty Tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there.
You were there?
Yeah. I was holding them back from the security guys. You remember the fight? Yeah. I literally had my hand on his chest.
Oh, I didn't know you then. That's just so it's weird that we were in the same space.
I know a couple people who were at that show that I ended up meeting way later.
That's so weird.
Yeah,
I was there.
Incredible. Yeah. It was
okay.
That's a story for another day.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Last artist.
So we got Smino. We got Michael Jackson. Give me. I want like a multi-instrumentalist for this.
Okay.
Who also does vocals. Man, I might just have to go with like my current people. Give me. No, I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
I love this shit.
No, I'm gonna switch it up on you. Give me Esperanza Spalding.
Okay.
Esperanza Spalding from Jazz.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Mix. Okay.
Go with some strings, and she has one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard. I feel like she and Smino could do something crazy.
That would be wild. All right, you heard it here. Oh, sorry. Oh my God, I got so excited. I hit the microphone. You heard it here first. Julian Mendoza, featuring Smino, Michael Jackson, Esperanza Spalding, produced by Jay Dilla and Quincy Jones. I think it would be a smash hit.
I think they could figure it out.
I think we'd figure it out. It'd be great. Julian, man, thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Such an awesome episode. Last thing to do would be to look in that camera and plug away. Let the people know where they can find you, what you got going on, whatever it is. Go ahead.
Man, as if this hasn't been enough. But my name is Julian Mendoza from Gloucester, Massachusetts. You can find me on all platforms as Julian Mendoza, my government name. Beneath My Wings is out now. It's been out for a good amount of time, but also check out my featured work with some other artists, because that's been some of the most fun that I've had doing music, is stepping out of my comfort zone for those things. So you can't go wrong. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And if you're just coming on to us for the first time and you're a fan of Julian Mendoza, you can find us at Turntable Teachers on Instagram, TikTok. Also hit up our website, turntableteachers.com. You'll find a couple of blogs written by the both of us actually on there, as well as merch and other episodes that you can tune into. And of course, if you are an artist, podcaster, content creator of any kind, make sure you hit us up at aoastudios.org. Book your session today and take a look at all of the amazing services that we offer here. And once again, Julian, thank you so much for being here. A lovely episode, as always. Thank you, sir. Absolutely. Really appreciate it. I'm Mike. That's Julian Mendoza with the Turntable Teachers. And class is officially dismissed.
Turn